Welcome to The World Today. I'm Waqas Majeed. Today's episode is more of a continuation of our discussions yesterday. We're still talking about the Indian war hysteria. We're talking about how India is leveling baseless allegations against Pakistan in continuation of their policy of trying to isolate Pakistan and to create a negative image of Pakistan in the world. But of course, that is failing because the rest of the world is not blind and they can see what India is up to. We're talking about the statements that have come out from New Delhi. Very high-level Indian Defense Minister Nirmala Sitharam warned Pakistan on Monday and said that Pakistan will have to pay for the attacks that took place in Kashmir recently. We'll talk about that in detail, but we'll also talk about what Mehbooba Mufti has said, the Chief Minister of IHK. She has said that there can be no progress unless dialogue with Pakistan is undertaken. It is necessary if bloodshed is to end in the subcontinent. A very positive statement from her, and of course she will have to suffer the backlash of that statement within India. We'll talk about that in detail as well. We'll also be talking about the Chief of Army Staff's visit to Kabul after the high-level Afghan delegation paid a visit to Pakistan. They apparently gave some evidence regarding terrorist attacks in Afghanistan. This is also going to be a further defensive conference that the Chief of Army Staff of Pakistan is attending, along with the Americans as well as the Afghan military leadership. Let's get the conversation started. I'd like to introduce my guests in the studio. Joining me today, we have Qamar Saab. He's with the Quaid-e-Azam University. And along with him, we have Abass Hassan, who's with the Institute of Strategic Studies. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. Cheem Saab, I'll start with you. And let's begin with the statement of the Indian Defense Minister. She said that the attack in Sunjwan was carried out by Jaish-e-Mohammed militants. And she added that the perpetrators were assisted by Pakistan. Now, she also further said that the JEM chief Masood Azhar was the mastermind of the attack, while there was also admittedly local support for this attack. So a very confusing statement coming out from such a high-level, high-ranking Indian official, don't you think?
Well, I think, Hansa, the important factor in this entire discourse is that since we're seeing the BJP's government in office, we have seen that the temperature has increased, and the statements that are coming from the political leadership and the military leadership are very offensive in nature. And I think today Pakistan's defense minister has also given a very tough statement. I think it's leadership's job to make things in order, and it's leadership's job to go for out-of-the-box solutions for creating peace and harmony in the region. But looking at that, how the Indian leadership and the people in India, they're trying to create confusion. For instance, if you just look at Indian media, they are pressurizing, they are trying to push the government to be tough on in Pakistan. And even if they're trying to make it, or they're trying to build a romance for the surgical strike, they believe that Indian authorities are so powerful that they can do surgical strike. And even while knowing that Pakistan can respond, and that will be, they're very much catastrophic and that will be disproportionate to the Indian response, definitely. But the point is that leadership has failed, and I think the pressure, in this situation, I think the absence of the third party or the international community for not interfering in Kashmir dispute and into the bilateral relations between India and Pakistan has taken us to the more to a situation where things are not reversing. I believe India is not as responsible as international community is considering it a responsible member of the global community, while knowing that India has a bigger role to play. India is a global financial destination, acceptable because of the big market they have, but that doesn't mean they can give India an open role to maneuver things in the region, because they are not responsible and they are party to a disputed conflict. So I think here, Pakistan's case, Pakistan has been talking globally that we are going to do things in a way where we can build peace, but we don't have a solution to the authorities in India who are drawing their energy from their Hindu nationalism, who are drawing their energy, who are drawing their authenticity or power from Hindu mindset and from the identity that is Hindu in nature. And I think this is where I think we believe third party need to intervene. And at the same time, this is the right time to expose India. And we need to be continuously exposing India. We need not to stop our efforts at one point. We do it, then we forget it, then we start doing it, then we forget it. And at the same time, our approach on Kashmir need to be consistent. That is where I think the way India's rising political cloud globally, if we do not take it on properly, or if we do not, if we let that happen, I believe in coming few days or years or months, the situation will be so much out of control for Pakistan that we won't be in a position to tackle that. Already, globally, the international community believes that India is a very powerful, and this market is a growing market, is important for them. So I think at this point, all what is needed, all what should be done is that we need to be assertive, we need to be strong. And at the same time, we need to tell to the international community, we need to expose the international community, let's not make that happen, let's not do this. And this is what is required. And I think this is where the Pakistani media and Pakistani authorities need to work on, because we believe that our global narrative on this issue is not that much being appreciated, and looking the way the Indian media is trying to portray situation. Even if, in the morning I was on certain Indian channel giving interview, and they were naming the people from Pakistan. They were saying, these are the people who are from the Pakistani authorities and they're responsible. And I was like, how can your channel come up with this pinpoint intelligence that this person from this place is doing this? So for God's sake, don't do this. And the people are buying, everybody is buying globally. And since they have an English-speaking media, people are watching, listening them. So they're trying to make the case very much lucrative for everyone across the board. So I think we need to be very active on this. Otherwise, things will not be in our favor.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very important point that you've raised, that it's the Indian media that is whipping up this war hysteria, whereas it boggles the mind. Abass, if you could share your views on this part, that how is it possible that within a matter of hours, all investigations in the attacks that took place in Kashmir were concluded, and the results of those investigations were so quickly gathered by the Indians, well, they couldn't stop the attack from happening in the first place. It boggles the mind. So that's one aspect to what has happened in Kashmir. The other one is that we are the ones who are constantly complaining of the ceasefire violations on a daily basis. We've lost thousands of people because of India's unprovoked shelling on the line of control. So how does India justify whipping up the war hysteria that its media is indulging in?
It indeed boggles the mind when you say that Indian media or Indian authorities were able to, pinpoint the perpetrators of these attacks within few minutes. This approach is taking the easy way out. You can always go back and blame to Pakistan. In fact, anything that takes place in that side of the border along the LOC, it's very easy and convenient to say, look, Pakistan is doing that, Pakistan is doing that, and it's the Pakistanis who are doing this. Instead of carrying out the proper investigation and securing their own places, this base was even attacked back in 2003. This is not the first attack on this base.
12 soldiers were killed.
12 soldiers were killed. Now 9 soldiers have been killed, including the attackers. And within few minutes, they said, now these guys are behind this, and the attack was planned in Pakistan. So if you know all this, which they don't in the first place, because the planning was not done in Pakistan in the first place, and that is the narrative, and in fact that is the reality that we have been painting to the international community, but the international community is not buying that. Why is it not buying that? Because we are busy on the Afghanistan front as well, where a lot of terrorist activities have taken place in the past 15 to 16 years.
And we have the same kind of rhetoric and accusations flowing from both sides of the border. So
we
how
have
do we deal with that?
We are dealing in a justifiable manner through our ambassador. Our ambassador in the US is doing a very good job. We are sitting here and we are portraying it to the international media that, look, we are not responsible for this. We have our own set of problems. We agree to that. But doing this attack will not do any good cause to the Kashmir cause, that we strongly support that Kashmir is not part of India by carrying out such attacks. Pakistan is not a foolish state. Pakistan is a responsible state. They know that if we carry out such activities, our point of view is going to be weak in the international community, and the international community is going to pinpoint towards Pakistan. Whereas India finds it very easy to blame it on Pakistan and say that Pakistan is the one that is busy in destabilizing Indian-held Kashmir, and they are not willing to actually get this cause resolved. This is their side of the picture. They find it very easy, very convenient to pinpoint towards Pakistan.
But the rest of the world, why cannot they see that Kashmir is illegally occupied by India? There are so many UN resolutions. We still are awaiting, after 70 years, for the plebiscite that was supposed to be held, and we are still waiting. And yet, the Indian narrative is being bought. So there's something wrong with our narrative. What do you think that that is wrong with our narrative? How do we approach fixing our narrative in such a way that it is more widely accepted as the truth?
Because I think first, India is a global financial destination.
We've already gone through that a number of times. So
but
there
that
has
is
to
the
be
main
other
factor.
reasons.
That is the main factor. Why international community believes that we need to have.
Maybe because they have a much more effective propaganda machine.
That is one way, one thing. But having a propaganda machine, the Russians have a bigger propaganda machine, but they are not doing everything. The world is not looking at them. India is looked upon as a source of for everyone, because they know that that is a place where we can invest our billions. You know, if we have to, for example, Modi was in, I think, in
Abu
Dhabi, and before that in World Economic Forum, and he spoke that we need to stay in the fold of globalization. And at the same time, he was trying to rebuttal, I think, Donald Trump, who at a certain point is considered a person who is not supporting globalization. So he believes that India is a place where the international community or the forces of globalization can help us to boost our economy, because we are now at the point of takeoff, because India is not an economy, or India is not a place which is a developed one. It is developing and looking at a huge population. That is first thing, you cannot ignore it. Second thing, I think that stops everyone for looking at is we don't have a consistent approach. If you remember, after Burhan Wani, everything happened. If Kashmir is a very nuclear flashpoint, let me tell you some figures. I saw the report of the PEMRA, that I think from April 2016 to 17, they gave a report. And the report was that more than 3,300 television shows were on the Panama leaks. More than 1,000 shows, something was on Dawn leaks. And there were just 300 some shows on Kashmir issue, being the third highest number of shows. Why? Because of Burhan Wani incident, and because there was a lot of freedom movement going on in India. The point is, a national discourse, whatever the situation is, whatever the political parties think, whatever the national security institutions think, we are not talking about Kashmir. Kashmir is, we just use sometime, or it's a kind of an instrument for us to have a global saying. Every time Prime Minister goes abroad to speak, what is the position of the emissaries former Prime Minister believed we need to send globally? Didn't they follow up the case which they pleaded it globally to the international community, either to the Human Rights Organization or to the United Nations or the other multilateral organizations? We didn't plead that, and we know this.
But I think Malia Lodhi has been doing an admirable job.
And she's not enough for the job. So even if we can send the emissaries once, why can't we send them twice or thrice? And after that, why can't we go for a follow-up? If that is the case. So I think that follow-up is missing, and follow-up missing is continuously. So we just look, if India wants to talk to us or the temperature is low, we forget Kashmir. Or if the temperature is high from India and we know they're not in the mood to talk, we keep on pushing the themes like we need Kashmir and this and that. So I think that is where we have to work, and that is consistency lacks in our policy, and it's not just today. What about the Kashmir Committee? What the chairman is doing of the Kashmir Committee? I think I didn't hear from him since long. So I didn't hear he's going globally to talk on Kashmir. He's globally challenged for not being. He's globally challenged for not being there anymore. He's restricted to go globally on many places, and we have given him a post of Kashmir Committee chairman, and he can't speak on that.
Right.
But for grabbing votes, they're doing this.
Right, Cheema sir, we'll come to that point later. Right now, Abbas, another accusation that has been tossed against Pakistan by the Indian defense minister was that Pakistan is expanding in its arch of terror to areas south of Pir Panjal and resorting to ceasefire violations to assist infiltration, whereas it has clearly been Pakistan who has been protesting time and time again about Indian ceasefire violations. Pakistan has not violated the ceasefire even once. Pakistan is the one that has always responded to Indian ceasefire violations. So how can they tell such blatant lies and expect it to be accepted by the rest of the world?
First, I'd like to continue what Cheema Sahib was saying, that the Indian media is bought across the globe because they have a very strong propaganda machine called the Bollywood.
Right.
The Bollywood sells, the international community is buying that propaganda, and this is one of the main aspects why India has been selling their lies so effectively and in an efficient manner. Even so, the movie recently released, it shows Hindus as the good guys and the Muslims as the bad guys, and they have been doing this for years now. Coming to your point that you have asked, that the Indians are blaming that we are the ones who are carrying out line of control violations and sending in infiltrators from our side of the border, whereas it's a world-renowned fact that India has placed a lot of its army across the line of control. They continuously keep on violating the line of control, and they have been firing. But at the same time, their intelligence is not strong enough to actually, maybe there are no perpetrators in the first place. These are the Indian agents who are carrying out these attacks just to weaken the Pakistani position. So you see, whenever in the international community, as he was mentioning, Cheema Sahib was mentioning about Burhan Wani, whenever the international community is focused towards Kashmir and there are international developments taking on, there are incidents like these happening. The Uri attack actually happened at a time when the international community was getting serious about the Kashmir matter, and there were serious movements, back channel diplomacy was going on to actually resolve the Kashmir issue. But then we see the Uri incident happening and the whole process crumbles like a cookie. This is exactly what has happened here. Prior to this attack, India was saying that you should not test our resolve and we will challenge your nuclear bluff and Pakistan should stop doing this. This attack actually supports the Indian statement by the Indian general that Pakistan is carrying out activities in Indian-held Kashmir. So whenever they say or give a statement, a strong, harsh statement, they actually carry out such events to put Pakistan on the back channel. Pakistan was very responsive on this statement and called it very irresponsible of India. Once again, they have issued an irresponsible statement, and they have been doing that. And they are selling their point of view to the international community in an effective manner. The PAMRA report speaks for itself. We are not doing this because we are involved in our own set of problems. Once we need to actually take a strong stance, make it our national narrative, and actually paint it to the international community that, look, we are not doing this. We have other problems of our own. We are very much centered toward Kashmir. We want this issue to be resolved. Kashmir issue is the longest standing agenda on UN. But when we say that we need to actually involve a third party in the conflict, which third party are we going to involve? America? America is on the US side. They want Delhi to play an important role in the region. Who else? There is Russia. Russia is not in a position to be a party to the conflict. We are actively trying to involve China into the conflict. But China is not willing to be a part of our conflict. China is willing to invest in Pakistan. China is willing to have its economic benefits and give economic benefits to us in the form of CPEC as well. But even China is not willing to be a party to this conflict. This is a fight that we have to fight on our own. And we have the capability and the capacity, both in terms of hard power and in terms of soft power. We can do this, but we need to be very serious about this. And unless and until we are serious about this, and we can, if you do the numbers and draw up a report, we can actually come up with this sequence of events that is taking place. The movement starts building, an event happens. An irresponsible statement is given, an event happens, and once again the onus is fell on Pakistan.
But notwithstanding the rhetoric that emanates from India, the facts on the ground speak for themselves.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the minister's statement. She said that all evidences collected have been compiled in such a short time, and definitely they will be given to Pakistan. Even after giving dossiers after dossiers to Pakistan, Pakistan has not taken any action. This is what the Defence Minister had to say. Cheema Sahib, would you like to respond?
Well, I think they just want to give a response to our dossiers in terms of dossiers. But I think all what matters is that one way or the other, globally our position is challenged, we are questioned, or the narrative that globally is being sold or being sold is selling is that somehow Pakistan has been linked with the non-state actor. That is a global narrative. We like it or not, and definitely the way we have eliminated the non-state actors, nobody else has done one thing. But somehow we have failed to dispel this narrative or this perspective. What we could have done for that, I think there's a lot of money, there's a lot of resources, and there's a lot of energy globally to give this position. But I think recently what the Americans have talked to us, and the way Pakistan has said that we are not going to do more, the world has realized that they have really done something, that they are now in a position that we can't do anymore. But on Indian side, India has realized one thing, that since we are trying to give Pakistan, putting Pakistan in a difficult situation where Afghanistan, an instant neighbor, is not pro-Pakistan or having a harsh words normally and doesn't listen to Pakistan. In region, Bangladesh is not normally, this is not on our side. We have a feeling, they're feeling that we are feeling alone in the region. Alone. Also China is with us, or Iranians support us, but at the same time they believe the global opinion on Pakistan is very much compromising as far as the non-state actors is concerned. So they are trying to use this particular non-state actor phenomenon to isolate Pakistan. What the American Congress is doing, that American Congress basically de-linked the Afghan non-state actors or with the for example, Lashkar-e-Taiba or Lashkar-e-Jhangvi. This is what the Indians believe, that we need to connect them in some way so that the US sanctions or the global sanctions are put here in Pakistan. But Pakistan has already mentioned that the way we have eliminated the terror networks in FATA or on the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, at the same time, we do not support Kashmir cause in any other way, but politically, morally, and diplomatically. And no other mean is being used, and this is the indigenous struggle going on, and we don't have any link with that. This is where I am talking on everywhere on Indian channels even, that we need to tell the whole story to the world. The whole story is that till you do not give people of Kashmir right of self-determination, they will keep picking up weapons. We cannot force them. If you are in a territory, you have forcefully grabbed the territory, you have 700,000 soldiers there, and you do not give them the fundamental rights, and they are not living in a normal situation, definitely there will come a time they will ask the authorities what we are doing. So even the Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti is talking, we need to engage with Pakistan.
We're going to come to that later. We're going to come to that later. Right now, one more fact that speaks for itself is that hours after the two-day gun battle in Sunjawan military base ended, a soldier was killed when two militants attempted to attack another paramilitary camp in the disputed region on Monday. Now, that speaks volumes for itself. Despite the false accusations being hurled against Pakistan, the indigenous movement, which Cheema Saab was referring to, is continuing in Indian-held Kashmir. Now, what does that say about the state of affairs in Kashmir?
Well, on the lighter side, I'd like to say that instead of countering the terrorists in the region, the Indians were busy collecting information from where the terrorist actually came. But this is just on the lighter side of the picture. It's pretty clear that Indians have not done enough in the region. They have not given the rights to the Kashmiris. They are violating international law, they are violating the UN resolutions, and due to this, when you suppress someone and you push someone against the wall and you keep on pushing someone against the wall, sooner or later they're going to fight back, and they're going to fight back strong. This is what the indigenous movement in Kashmir is doing. The indigenous movement actually died down a few years ago. There was nothing happening in Kashmir. It was, the world was moving towards peace and we were having a peace plan going on. But then India once again sabotaged the plan through the attack on the parliament. If you remember back in 2002, then the 2003 incident happened. So India has been doing this over and over again, and when the indigenous movement started again.
There is a book that just came out,
yes,
which is not written by a Pakistani, by the way, which is written by an independent scholar from the West, which has claimed in his book that the Indian attack on parliament was a false flag operation conducted by the Indians themselves. Now, that sort of information is out there for the people to see. But despite that, we are the ones who are always blamed. Why is that?
We need to sell that information to the world. You see, when something like this comes out, the Indian media is very pertinent to label it as something that is wrong, that is false, that is based on wrong information, that is not right, it is damaging Indian interests. Whereas on our side, we are not doing enough. We need to actually put that information to the world. Look, You see now, not even we are saying this. The international media and the international analysts are saying this based on hard evidence, hard fact. At that time when the parliament attack actually happened, Pakistan had a new government and we were going in a transition, and India wanted to flex its muscle. Fortunately for us, our army was strong enough to actually respond very strongly to the Indian movement, and that's when they developed Cold Start doctrine, and when they realized that India is not in a position to actually have an adventure with Pakistan. So when they developed the Cold Start doctrine, we developed our tactical nuclear weapons. So on the hard power, we are very strong. We can face India any day, any time of the day. But this is not what we want. We want to resolve the issue in a peaceful manner. We need to negotiate, and we need a solution that is acceptable to the Kashmiris, to the Pakistanis, and to the Indians, and that can only take place when we talk.
Absolutely, that is the most important thing, and that's where Mehbooba Mufti's statement comes in. Cheema Saab, I'd like you to elaborate on that. Now, this is interesting because Mehbooba Mufti is a coalition partner with the BJP, and she has said, and I would like to quote what she tweeted. She said that dialogue with Pakistan is necessary if we are to end bloodshed. I know I will be labeled anti-national by news anchors tonight, but that doesn't matter. The people of J&K are suffering. We have to talk because war is not an option. Now, that is a very sane statement coming from the Chief Minister of Indian-held Kashmir, who is a stalwart of the BJP. Now, do you think that her political career is going to be in jeopardy after this tweet, first of all? Secondly, why are the people in power in BJP not listening to Mehbooba Mufti?
Well, I think that is a coalition government, and she believes that she's losing the vote bank. The elections are drawing, and she actually wants to stay in the limelight as well, because after Burhan Wani, the way she has played, that was not enough, or that was not sufficient. The opposition parties are actually trying to force her to be tough, but being among the BJP ranks, it is very tough to speak in that tone and style. I think what matters in this situation is that if we have to look BJP, we have to look at that from where we are drawing the energy. You have to look at the Hindu nationalism, and you have to look at the RSS.
Would you say Hindu nationalism or Hindu fascism?
Anything you can equate with it.
Because, I mean, there's a difference.
You can equate it with it that. But I think this is where it lies. BJP draws its energy from RSS, and that is where they believe that we need to keep the appetite of RSS at a point where they do not question the leadership, or they do not give tough time to the leadership, because that is the nursery from where the entire BJP leadership has come from. So that is they're trying to fulfill the appetite. Since I think we need to move forward from this position. We believe Modi is having a political clout at home. He's being loved globally. He's being hugged globally. Now, the point is, in this situation, what we can do. Either we have to be tough with them, or we have to bob wires, or we have the way our defense minister gave a statement, their defense minister gave a statement, at the absence of third party. And in this situation, we also know that looking at his political clout, there is a probability he will win next elections. So if he will win next elections, so it means 3-4 years now, 5-6 years next. So is the region going to feel the heat that is coming from this mindset, or the temperature that is in New Delhi and the entire country? And looking at the edge which the media has taken, media was not that hostile, although it was hostile, but not that hostile, asking, pressurizing, giving, pushing, and the leadership, the BJP, when are you going for a surgical strike?
Of fanning the fire of hatred.
Fanning the fire, the flame, so they realize that, and when the BJP comes on television, they're kind of defensive. We will do it. We are doing it. We will. This. So BJP, and they think this media is playing very dirty game in this entire picture. So we need to sit and
or maybe they're doing it for ratings.
Yeah, definitely.
Always
at the same
a dirty
time,
game.
It is there. But I think definitely what is needed in this situation is that we need to make a plan, and there not be situation to situation. We cannot go for firefighting. We have to make a plan that a person who is here even for the next 5 years, how to deal with him. And if we don't have a plan, I think, and looking at the global opinion on us and the way we are too slow to change the narrative. We are working. The narrative is changing on us. The world is, the perception globally is changing about Pakistan, that we have done a lot. Even the American Congress, American authorities, everyone has realized this. But one thing, our strong areas, which were our strong areas like the Arab world, now is the Indian intervention in those areas. So our space is being decreased. Europe, America, these were the countries we have dealt for decades. That is, they're not listening as the way we want to be listened. Arab world getting more closer to India.
Well, isn't that a strange thing? Cheema sir,
I
would
think
you
this is
like to
not a
comment
strange-
on the
This
Arab
is-
world's newfound
New
closeness with
romance
India?
with India. I think, look, the Modi realized that if, for instance, if the Arab world is getting closer to Israel, why we can't get closer to Israel? So he has gone more closer to Israel. One thing, buying $1 billion weapon, and then he has also went to Palestine. Just to know, he voted against United States, against Israel in General Assembly. He invited Israeli Prime Minister, then went to Palestine. He's doing all for his Muslim world. Because that 200, 300 million population in of Muslims in India, they are a big number. They are the actually people who can vote him in for the next election.
And there's also a very large Indian diaspora in the Arab world
Even
as well.
if you can, let me tell you, more than $35 billion as foreign remittances coming from Middle East in India.
And there are
A big
3
number.
million Indians in the Middle East.
Yes, and they're making temples. So I think we are inching ourselves away from the Arab world. The Indians are getting closer. Our case for Kashmir is gone in the Arab world. The Indians
But
realized
what has the Arab world done for the Kashmir cause in the previous 70 years?
that is questionable.
Well, I just asked that question, Cheema sir. Would you like to answer it? Well, let's move on, man. Let's talk about the statement given by Islamabad's Foreign Office spokesperson, Dr. Mohammed Faisal. He said that it was a pattern that the Indian officials made irresponsible statements even before any investigation into any incident had been initiated. Now, that is what has been happening previously as well, and that's what we are witnessing today as well. Do you think that the international community is also observing India's actions every time something goes wrong within Indian-held Kashmir, and it is always the Kashmiris who are now fighting back the Indian oppression?
Well, I personally believe that this pattern will continue because this is the easy way out. Indians find it very convenient to blame it on Pakistan. And the international media, despite of the fact knowing that India is making irresponsible statements based on false information, which is like spreading terrorism, spreading false information. But at the same time, India is offering a lot to the West. They have opened their markets to the West. They're saying you're free to invest in the West. We are a safe country. They have been successfully able to propagate and sell this image to the international community that we are the ones who are the future in South Asia. Unfortunately for us, we have not been able to do this.
Do you think that India's previous economic policies are responsible for this situation, or do you think that there are some other factors?
What I personally believe is that it's the stability of the system in India that is responsible for this Indian stance. Since the system continues, the policy continues, they have some very strong policies regardless of what party comes into power. Kashmir is a no-go area. They say the Kashmir is part of Pakistan, no matter what party comes into the power. Second, they strongly believe that the Hindus are the ones who are going to rule this region. Whether it's Congress or whether it's BJP. Congress does it in a very subtle way. BJP does it in a very overt way. They push, they go all out, explode all weapons, everything that they have in their artillery. They blast it, they sell their image to the international media. Whereas the Congress government does it very slowly, calmly. They're doing their work. They're doing it the right way. But the BJP is selling it to the international community. It's the Indian influence across the globe that is doing this. I'd like to share one very important news here. Indians are building an Afro-Asia growth corridor. They're saying it that this is going to counter the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative. We are promoting that on a very, we are part of that BRI initiative. India is not part of that BRI initiative. So they have teamed up with Japan and they have included the African continent, which contains 54 countries. Now 54 countries supported by India and Japan means 54 votes in the UN towards Indian favor. Now this is what the Indians are doing. They're slowly and in a very set pattern, they are blaming Pakistan for everything that's taking place in Kashmir. They think Pakistan is not willing to have peace in the region, and they are continuously infiltrating. If you look at the other side of Mehbooba Mufti's tweet that we need to talk with Pakistan, this also shows that she's in between the lines, she's saying Pakistan is involved in all this bloodshed. So she has tweeted a very smart tweet. It says, it paints her as the peace stuff, and at the same time she's continuing her policy with the BJP. She's saying Pakistan is responsible, but we need to talk with Pakistan to have peace. But at the same time, she has said that Pakistan is responsible for all these actions.
Well, I think you're reading a bit too much in her tweet. I think let's leave things. Sometimes we don't need to read between the lines. Things are pretty clear as they've been said. And what she is saying is that we need to talk, which is what you said earlier.
Yes,
and that is really the bottom line,
yes,
that we need to talk. And that's where we should leave it. Thank you very much. But before we end the program, we also need to talk about the Chief of Army Staff's visit to Kabul. And we had the Afghan delegation visiting us, Cheema Saab. Unfortunately, no progress was made according to the statements that came out from the Afghan as well as the Pakistani side. The Pakistani side was slightly more hopeful, and the Afghan side was not so much. But as a result of that, the Chief of Army Staff is now in Afghanistan. He's meeting with General John Nicholson. He's meeting with the Army Chief General Sher Mohammad Karimi. What are your expectations from this particular meeting of the Chief of Army Staff?
Well, I think if history is any guide, the expectations are very low. If you remember, Army Chief went before in his first visit to Kabul. Both countries agreed that there is going to be a decree that will come from the religious scholars from both the countries. We agreed on that, and Pegam-e Pakistan, fatwa that came from the, I think, more than 1,800 scholars, religious scholars and ulamas gave that. When it came out, the Afghan authorities asked and demanded it should include Afghanistan, although we included the entire world in it. And that was a universal, not for a specific country. But they wanted to get a special attention, and we are not seeing any kind of decree or from Afghanistan. So I think this is looking at one thing. Second, I think the mistrust is so deep in Afghanistan. And knowing that the entire world believes that it's Pakistan which is responsible for the mess in Afghanistan, although we know 50-60% territories with the Taliban there, and they don't need sanctuaries here. There are a lot of sanctuaries there.
They don't need sanctuaries. They're living in their own country.
So they're living there. So I think this is, looking at this, the only hope we have is that we can have a saner voice from United States, because we know that they're the main stakeholders in the entire process. And they actually, I was reading the press release that came from the Afghanistan's embassy in Islamabad. The press release was offensive. I actually read it. Someone sent me. I read it, and there were like offensive words in it that we actually.
Cheema Saab, you get easily offended, I think.
No, it's not about getting easily offended. I'm not reading between the lines.
Please.
I'm reading the lines.
Please share.
So it's like they said that strategically we agreed we need to talk, but we didn't agree on anything, that how we have to move forward.
Except for the mechanism.
For the mechanism. So I was like, this is how, Afghanistan gives a statement. So I think Pakistan, we want to be tough, we want to be soft, and looking at how, in which quagmire the Afghan authorities are, looking at the political situation, I think we only expect the Americans as soon as possible. They agree that how we have to deal. Because recently the number 2, I think Rand Paul, the Deputy Secretary of State, he gave a statement in Senate, and he said that 3-4 statement he gave that all we want is that we want to empower the Afghan army, even if they didn't empower before. They believe that we want to redraw the regional coalition, which is very much alarming for us, how to redraw for the regional coalitions, because this is where we believe the Indians
Sounds more like a pipe dream, though.
Yeah, yes. And then they believe that we want to look that there is a broader stability in the region, in Central Asia.
Well, that is the stated objective of Pakistan and the US and the Afghan government and most countries. That's what they say.
Yes.
We want peace in the region, but the only way to achieve that peace is by actually talking to the adversaries.
Stakeholders.
Absolutely. And
Yes,
that is
and this
really
is
the
where they're
bottom line.
not coming.
And it is the same story that we see on both sides of our border, isn't it, Cheema Saab? We want the Afghans to have a serious conversation with us, as well as the Indians to have a serious conversation with us. And both are really dilly-dallying on this very important aspect and not having that serious conversation that needs to be had. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking out the time and sharing your views with PTV World. You heard the conversation. And as usual, in conclusion, we'd like to say that you may draw your own conclusions from what you've heard, but we hope and pray that both our erstwhile neighbors, India and Afghanistan, do realize that the only way forward for peace is to have a negotiated and sustained dialogue. We hope that that's the case. So, goodbye.